Mr. Alex Young, welcome.
Youngblood.
What did I say? Youngblood, the best name. Alex Youngblood. So great to have you, man.
Thank you for having me, seriously. And thank you for having me more generally in this gym, my new life, my new home, my new church. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we thank you for being here and doing everything you're doing. How can I introduce you? You're a person with many interesting person.
I'm a human being. I don't know. I'm a human being. Perhaps I came from a different planet, but I know I'm a Homo sapien.
That's good.
That's as much as I know. I know my mother. I don't know my father, so that makes me question sometimes, where did I come from? And on my own podcast, which you've been on,
right,
that's been the biggest impetus for me starting that kind of in 2018, starting to interview my mom, my grandmother, my sister. Eventually I did travel to Louisiana, interview my father to find out who I am and who I want to be, really.
Mm-hmm.
And what I want to do on this life, on this earth, what's valuable, what's not valuable, how should we invest our time and energy. So yeah, I like talking to people, and I'm learning. I'm a late bloomer, I think, in life. I know I am. And I
said Alex Young, and you have like the best last name, Youngblood. And I'm like, man.
Well, I think about that too, man. That's what makes me think, like, what is going on? Because I do feel like that, not to sound, I don't know how this is going to sound, but like, I identify as like a 17-year-old. Everyone identifies with whatever they want these days, right? I identify as a 17-year-old kid. Seriously.
Yeah, that's good.
I feel like,
it's a mindset, right?
Yeah. I feel like I spent the first 20 years of my life not drowning, that's strong, but surviving, not thriving, not even really learning that much. But around age 20, I feel like I kind of started to understand reality, and we can get into this more if you want, but really get control of my own mind. It wasn't until about age 20, 21 that I felt in control of my own mind. So I've got, 16 years at the, wheel of my own mind. And the first 20, I didn't feel like I was really at the wheel. So, yeah, I identify as a 17-year-old, 16-year-old, whatever's the 18, actually, so that way I can date legally.
You're legal.
It's all consensual and above board.
Where are you from originally?
I was born in Monroe, Louisiana, which is like a small town in northeast Louisiana. It's not cool Louisiana, southern Louisiana. It's farming Louisiana. But my parents were not married. When I was born, my mom already knew she was not going to be with my dad. They weren't together.
Okay.
And my grandmother was living in Atlanta, working for Home Depot at the time. And so she just packed up. Once, I guess I had some major health issues, like on the day of my birth. I was born a stillbirth with like no oxygen. And I had to spend the first 2 weeks, I guess, of my life in like an incubator in isolation. I think that's why I hate the cold plunge so much. I mean, no one likes the cold plunge, but like, that's how I was born. I was born cold and dead. So I think it reminds me of that. And so it took me.
How does that work?
What's that?
How does that happen?
I don't know the exact I know very generally what happened. It's actually part of the reason I want to. If anyone wants to listen to my mom's podcast episode of my podcast, she goes into more detail. But generally speaking, I'm
sure she found out what actually happens, right?
No, she did. The placenta abrupted. I was a very late birth. Like I was like 2 weeks or a month late. I was huge.
Wow.
Yeah, I was just in there too long. I was like over 10 pounds, 2 feet. And the placenta abrupted. It's small town Louisiana. When she finally went into like labor, there was no one there. Like there weren't no nurses on the floor. She tells a story about just like being stuck in the room by herself, and she knows something's going terribly wrong. And so, once again, I don't know the exact medical term, whatever, but I was born stillbirth. They give you like an APGAR score. I think it's 0 to 10. 10 being like you're kicking and screaming, rosy cheeked, everything's good to go. 0 being you're like actually dead. And I was at 1.
Wow.
And so they just took me off. My mom didn't see me or anything. She says, like, I never even saw you. They just took you away immediately. And I went to, I was in ICU, NICU, intensive care unit for like the first 2 weeks of life. And then once I was like, I guess good to go, my mom moved us from Louisiana to Atlanta, Georgia, well, suburbs of Atlanta, Roswell, Georgia. And that's how I grew up my whole life with my mom, my younger sister, who was born 2 years later in Atlanta, and then my older sister, who had already been born from a different father in Louisiana as well. And yeah, my single mom raised the three of us by herself. She did an awesome job. She should have made me cry thinking about that, but my mom did an awesome job with us, and it wasn't an easy time for anybody. So, yeah.
Awesome, man. And now you're in LA.
Now I'm in LA.
I met your mom, right? And your sister.
You did, yeah.
Your,
met
your
my
older sister or younger sister?
You met my mom and I think my younger sister, who's a doctor now. She delivers babies, actually. That's what she does. She's a midwife. So it's cool, man. And my mom instilled a love of children in us. And she always said this. I never really believed it. That the only thing that she wanted in life was to have kids. And when she did, that was like she felt fulfilled and whole. And all she needed to do from there was raise them and ensure that they became kind people. And I was like, dude, that's bullshit. Like, I want to become like the quarterback for the Falcons. You know, I want to drive fast cars, and you know, that wasn't always my priority growing up. But I want to do cool shit. Yeah. That can't be your only goal in life. But dude, she instilled this love of kids in us. And as much as I tried to avoid it, by the time I graduated college, I had to become a teacher. And I spent, I don't know, a decade working in K through 12, basically, education systems, working with some college kids as well. And I moved out to LA, just to kind of segue to where you were. I moved out to LA right before COVID in 2020 to be the nanny of 2 little girls of one of my close friends who I used to teach with. And I loved kids before that. Like the process of education, seeing a human being grow. But seeing nothing turn into everything and like being an intimate part of the process, I get my mom now. Like I get how you could be a fulfilled human being just by being a parent and seeing and feeling confident that you did everything you could to turn those, what was once nothing, into like vessels of love. And my mom did that for me, my 2 sisters. And so now I get that. I understand that. And I'm not ready to have kids, although I did cross a bridge at some point in the last few years where like, if a pregnancy did occur, 100% keeping it. Whereas I was in my 20s, you know, that would have been a dire proposition. But yeah, man, all I want to do now is have kids and see as much of the world as possible and talk to as many people as possible. And I don't know, tell as many people's stories as possible. And then now I'm obsessed with this stuff. So this martial arts being this stuff. And so I want to do martial arts for as long as my body will allow. But I don't necessarily know if it's a lifelong. I guess it will, because I'd like to teach it. If I continue with this, I'd like to teach it. So I'm going off tangent now, but just as far as my life goals. But yeah, I just want to have kids and see as much of the world as possible, generally speaking.
Have you traveled around a lot?
I've done a good amount of traveling. I studied international affairs and Spanish in school.
International affairs?
International affairs, like international relations, politics, and war, economy, terrorism, all that stuff. Just because when I got to school...
And you said Spanish?
And Spanish. And long story short, I've talked about this a bunch, but the whole reason I didn't feel like I was in control of my mind prior to 20 was, once again, longer story, but I had severe obsessive-compulsive disorder growing up. Severe.
You shared it with me, yeah.
Yeah. Debilitating. I couldn't read a book. I didn't read a book from 5th grade through sophomore year of college.
Wow.
I couldn't, I could barely write my name on a piece of paper. When it came time to SAT, ACT, all that shit, I couldn't complete a single section on the test because I would have all these rituals that I have to go through for each bubble. So it was like age 10 to age 20, every second of every day, my mind was overwhelmed, but it felt like a demon that was just telling me I had to do, wash my hands 165 times, tie my shoes over and over again, drive back to high school and redo my locker combination 81 times until the janitor kicks me out. Or if I don't do these things, some horrible thing will happen. Like my mom will die on the way home from school, or none of the girls will like me. It's just craziness, right? So that's how I spent the majority of my, age 10 to 20 really, so I didn't learn much. I got by in school, I got good grades because I'm good at listening, I'm good at bullshitting, and I don't know, I think I picked things up fairly quickly, but when I got to college, I had no idea what I wanted to learn because all I knew about was sports. The only thing I could invest my time in consistently was ball sports, soccer, football, basketball, all that shit.
You did good in sports.
Yeah, I did good in sports. I did good in school. I had friends, but like everything was limited.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was limited. It's like, I don't know. It's like if you had, it's like a drug addiction or something. How a drug addiction or something would limit a child's and adolescent's development, right? Everything was stifled. I was in the highest classes academically. I was on all the highest teams, football and soccer and all that stuff, but I was never reaching my full potential. I was just kind of like showing up, and that was so frustrating always. So when I got to college, I just picked the thing that was like the most general thing. I got on medication in college, took away all the OCD symptoms. I read my first book sophomore year of college, and from there, shit was easy. Academic stuff was super easy. But I just wanted to study what was most general. So I studied international affairs. And from there, I wanted to learn how to travel, or I wanted to develop a desire to travel. So yes, to answer your question, the most long-winded way possible. On 2 separate occasions, I've just packed a bag and hopped on a bus. One time from San Diego, and I ended up in Ecuador. So I hit every country between here and Ecuador, except I skipped Panama, Colombia, and Peru. And so then a couple years later,
Panama, Colombia, and Peru. Okay.
Yeah, so I just went consecutively. I left San Diego, traveled down Baja, crossed over the Sea of Cortez, down all through Mexico, hopped into Guatemala, what's South Guatemala? Nicaragua, or Honduras. I'm getting more confused.
Nicaragua's on Honduras is it's on like the east side, you know.
I should know this. I used to live in.
And then El Salvador is like on the west side, you know.
San Salvador's west side.
El Salvador, yeah.
El Salvador, yeah. So anyway, I traveled to all Central America and all that.
I know that because I've been going down there, and so I've been looking at the maps. And
you've been going down there?
Well, I'm familiar with from just different type of things. And,
okay.
And then other things, you know. So
yeah. So yeah, 2 vagabond trips. I've traveled to where I just packed a bag and hopped on buses. I've come into every country between here and Chile.
So you went to Honduras? You went to all the countries?
Yeah, I've been to every country.
What years were those?
I lived in Honduras for 1 year in 2013 and 14.
Okay. Yeah, because it was kind of crazy, right? And it's been getting cleaned up. Well, El Salvador has been.
Honduras was nuts.
Yeah.
It was, at the time I lived there, it was the most violent country per capita on the planet. Yeah. There's more people murdered per day than any other country in the world. It was nuts. You just go to sleep to gunshots. It was insane.
And you're like a white boy there, blonde hair.
Mm-hmm. I never had any issues, really. I mean, I saw violence. Violence was in my neighborhood. I could sit on the roof of my house and smoke a joint every night, and it was only a matter of time before you saw someone got shot. It was insane.
Wow.
Yeah, I had a good friend of mine who got...
How long did you stay there for?
I was there a year.
Really?
Yeah, but I'd been down there
What made you stay there for a year?
So,
you could have stayed. Did you stay in Mexico for a year?
No. Honduras, I lived and worked. Okay. I was working down there.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I was doing nonprofit work. I was working for an organization that,
I was gonna say.
I was doing nonprofit work. Let's put it that way. It's like consulting.
I thought you just went to travel and then you stopped in Honduras.
No,
places.
No. I moved before I traveled anywhere. I moved to Honduras.
Okay.
So I hadn't been I'd been to Germany. My present from my mom from graduation, we split it. Was to go to the World Cup in 2006 in Germany.
Wow.
Yeah. So I went with my best friend from high school, and we saw a few matches, and then that was the only time I left the country. And then Honduras. Yeah, so I taught for 3 years. I taught special education right out of college for 3 years, like kids with severe behavior issues. And after my first year teaching, my younger sister, who's the hero of the family, shout out Morgan, I love you very much. She was starting, she was like 19. She like got her undergrad at like 20, master's at like 21, maybe like her undergrad at 19 or master's at 20. And when she was 19, she started her own nonprofit in Honduras. And so I went down with her in 2011 after my first year teaching to help her get shit set up. And I just met a bunch of people and organizations. I did 2 more years teaching in Phoenix, and then I knew that
Did you teach special ed as well in like Phoenix and
yeah, out of school for 3 years, out of undergrad for 3 years, I taught in Phoenix, special education, kids with severe behavior issues.
Okay.
But it's special education. My master's degree's in special education, but I mostly work with kids with behavior issues. And then, yeah, my sister started that nonprofit. She moved down there full time. I was going to do the Peace Corps. That was my plan always in college. And I wanted to teach in the U.S. for a few years, and I was going to do Peace Corps. And I was about to get sent to Peru. This is after Phoenix. And I just couldn't. My sister was down there. I made a good friend. That was her best friend that was going to move down there as well to, like, get the organization rolling. I was like, I got to go down there with them. That sounds so exciting. And so I did. And so I found some other organizations, and, yeah, we were down there for a year working with kids.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was dope.
So tell me your opinion on special ed or whatever, just that classification with these kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's your opinion how they should be? What's the best way to bring out the best in these kids that are put in this lane, because once you're kind of in that lane, right? There's some like jiu-jitsu world champions, like there's some like great people that have been put in that lane, and they felt like they were like not good enough or stupid or whatever, and then they become great people.
Well, my first answer to that was going to say, don't put people in the lane.
It's like the school system kind of puts us in that lane.
Yeah.
That's my.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put it in.
No.
Doing jiu-jitsu.
No.
I see that.
100%.
How can you classify anybody?
Special education is managed by the federal government. It's based on a piece of legislation that was passed in, I think, 1975 called the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA.
Disability in there, huh?
Yeah. And like most things managed by the government, it's a fucking disaster. And the farther away you get from the actual problem, this is my opinion, but I have actual real world experience in this situation.
Yeah, that's why.
And I've used my
something that I'm very passionate about because of what we do with jiu-jitsu.
100%.
I see these kids that are called stupid, and they feel like they have no self-esteem because they're told they're stupid, and treated like they're stupid from other people, and they become like amazing people, like leaders in the world.
Well, that's the counter, right? The positive externality of what I consider to be a bad approach to special education, as you said, putting them in the lane.
Yeah.
The positive externality to that is that for a very few exceptional students, that like kind of pressure and oppression, for lack of a better term, will ignite greatness, right?
Yeah.
From adversity will come greatness. However, when we're talking about like the more widespread general management of kids with learning issues or whatever it may be, we shouldn't like isolate them into a separate like educational system, so to speak.
Yeah.
And this is the ultimate goal of special education, is to educate the kid in the least restrictive educational environment that is most similar to their non-disabled peers, right? That's the ultimate goal, but it's very rarely done by that. And honestly, especially at the younger ages, I would say leave those kids alone, man. Let them struggle, let them experience those difficulties, let them develop a relationship with what their disability is, especially at the younger ages when the stakes are low and the support is high.
Like what kind of ages?
Kindergarten through 5th grade. Kindergarten through 5th grade is everything, right? Kindergarten through 5th grade is everything.
So
you're
important. Up to 8 years old, right? Your formative years of who you are as a person.
Yeah, I mean, states like California will base their future prison construction and projections for the numbers of inmates they're going to have based on the results of 3rd grade literacy tests. That's like, it's sad to say, but generally speaking, if you don't get your shit together by the end of 5th grade, like, you like it's tough after that.
Yeah.
So I think kids should be, I think as much as possible, any special needs kids should just be left in the regular environment with like an extra teacher. I don't believe they should be pulled out of their like classroom environment. And my school where I taught is super antiquated. They took all the kids that got in trouble constantly and just put them in an entirely separate school. It's like a little prison, right?
This is in Arizona?
This is in Arizona. Shout out Roosevelt School District. Amy Houston Academy. You know who you are. You know what you're doing. I love everyone there, like everyone that I worked with, and we did some great work. It's a crazy way to handle a significant issue. It's you're institutionalizing, and you're basically preparing them for the criminal justice system from the jump, right? You're taking all the bad kids and putting them in the bad kid environment. Yeah. That's what that's what happens to actual
criminals. If you're like whatever good kid, you're going to be around like these other kids that are.
Yes, because there's some kids in there that really shouldn't be there. They don't have like conduct disorders. You're talking about some kids in there come from extremely violent homes, and for some kids, they really do need to be separated from the environment, because they are a danger to themselves or others. But those are exceptional cases. The problem is with this type of approach that I worked in, you'll have that kid who's like stabbing all of his classmates with scissors next to some kid who really is on the autism spectrum and doesn't like all the stimulus of like a full classroom environment. And so he kind of like acts out and screams. Now all of a sudden you've got that kid who has really no significant behavior issues at all right next to this dude that's like carrying a Glock and selling guns. Yeah. So I think kids should be left in the general environment as much as possible. You need to
up to fifth grade,
as much as possible, all through,
even through middle school.
We just need more teachers, man. You just need a higher student to teacher ratio.
Why are teachers? My mom was a teacher for her whole life, and my grandmother, and my family, they were board of education. But like, why are teachers paid better?
Why aren't teachers paid better?
Yeah. Why is the pay so low? You get the nice summers, right?
You do get the nice summers. I think it's multi-factor. Right? I think just from a macroeconomic perspective, the way the school system is set up right now, a lot of people could do it, right? So it's not highly skilled labor from a macroeconomic perspective. For instance, my case, I didn't study education. I studied international affairs and Spanish. I started tutoring kids on the side in college. That's like my work study job, and that kind of reignited my love for kids that my mom had instilled in us. And I decided I need to become a teacher, and I just found an alternative path to teacher program, which exists all over the place because there's such a shortage of teachers. It's very easy to get in the door as a teacher. Anyone can do it, right? It doesn't require a ton of education certification, and therefore you don't have to pay a ton. It's like work at the cafe here. Right. You don't pay you're not making $100 an hour because there's a surplus of that kind of labor. Right. There's not a surplus of teachers because not a ton of people are willing to do it, but it does seem like a lot, especially young women, are willing to do the job at least for a few years, and that's typically what you find is that people do it for 2 to 5 years and then get out. But there's always that new churn
of the people coming to school and the teachers.
It's very short. Like
okay.
There's not a lot of longevity in the profession, but there's always a new churn of young people that are willing to do it. It seems like to me.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other thing is the government holds kind of a monopoly on education. So they control the rate, right? There are private schools, right? So it isn't a complete monopoly. I don't know what the term is, like monopsony or something, but the government has a significant control of the market if you just look from a market perspective. So there's not a ton of innovation. There's not a ton of incentive for competition.
Yeah.
For the labor, because it's all controlled by one system, right? There's only one path. You can go to private schools, but private schools aren't going to offer you. What private schools are offering is that you don't have to deal with all the bullshit regulations of government, but they're probably going to offer you a lower salary.
We spoke when we did a couple podcasts, and we spoke for a while, and just how important it is. We talk about teacher pay and all that, but really the question should have been, like, how do we get better teachers out there in the world that really want to make a difference? Like, because that's everything. Like a teacher, a counselor, a coach, can make all the difference of a kid going one way or the other way.
I mean, it's by far, as a society, as a planet, as a world, as a civilization, it's by far the biggest bang for your buck as far as invest. I know I'm speaking purely from like economic standpoint here, but it's by far the biggest bang for your buck as far as investment is concerned. Investment in a child's education has got to pay off. I'm sure there's mathematics on this, but multiple factors down the road. I think the only way to get more people in the game is I think you hit it. I think it's pay. You got to be paying these people 6 figures minimum.
But how do you I guess there's like specialty schools. Like, have you heard of that book called The Talent Code?
Yeah.
And they have there's like a school here in LA that they replicated. Could you look it up, Kevin? It's like
Kevin does like Jamie stuff.
It's like I think something great. It's like a bit it's like all like cultural.
Right.
Like your how they set the culture right.
Yeah.
It's a book, school from book of
Talent Code.
Talent Code.
School from Talent Code.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think the only way you're getting more teachers in
LA school maybe
is the only way you're getting better teachers is raising the salary. The only way to raise the salary is.
No, it's called. I think something great is in the name. Great.
But yeah, compensation.
What's that?
You have to increase compensation to get better teachers. I don't see any. I don't think there's any no other way. There's any other way.
And then the teachers that are standouts that they just stand out, right?
And they should be compensated accordingly. They should be.
But the book, the Talent Code, was really good because they had, instead of making it academic, it was all like behavioral things from a young age.
Oh yeah.
Like cultural things, like this is what whatever. Not bowing in, but like we have in the jiu-jitsu, we bow in, we bow out.
Yeah.
Show respect.
100%.
We have the right frame of mind of training. But so they have the same kind of things, there.
Yeah. No, 100%. I mean, I think K through 5 education, these kids should be learning how to do reading, writing, basic arithmetic. I think outside of that, they should be learning soft skills. They should be learning social skills, behavior skills, resilience, how to like use their mind, meditation, how to calm their mind, how to think critically. I think way too much, especially when you're putting kids in public school for 13 years, way too much time is spent on academics. Once you get to the high school level, dude, and you're studying like Calc 2 and like organic chemistry, it's like, no, dude, let's go to meditation class or jiu-jitsu class or yoga class or, I don't know, softer skills.
Yeah. So I have to look at that. That's driving me crazy here in LA.
Should I vamp here? Should I fill the dead air?
No.
Kev, what's up with you, buddy?
It's all good. It's all good. It's all
You got
good.
a mic?
It's all good. We'll keep looking at it. He'll tell us,
I can sing.
Yeah, but man, it's just like how do we improve? What's the solution, right? What's the solution for these kids for them not to fall through the cracks? Is hard, right?
Super.
Of course, it comes like you had an amazing mom, but having the parents have to be right. How's your home, right? And
well, it all starts there. I mean, this is a broader discussion. I personally feel that government taxpayer money should not be used to engineer the society that we all dream of. I think government and taxpayer money should be used to protect all of our human rights in an equal way across the board. The actual process of life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, I think government should ensure you that opportunity, as in police, firefighters. You could make the argument healthcare. It gets a little tricky, right? You could make the argument education. But I don't think government money should be used to ensure that every individual is going to reach the same destination.
Right.
That's just
we're all
not
different. Yeah.
We're all different. We all come from different places, and that is what we're doing
One
here.
person's happiness isn't going to be the same.
Yeah.
Another person's happiness.
And you being born into a wonderful family, right? This is going to be the counter argument from on the other side is, right, well, not everyone is born into the same situation. Yeah, no shit.
Yeah.
But like you just said, the people that you referenced, the jiu-jitsu champions or whatever, that experienced great adversity in their youth, that's actually an advantage for them in the long run than the kid that grew up in the suburbs with, you know, the lily white family, house, car, you know, and all the trappings. Life is different. We're living on a rock that's hurling through the universe at a zillion miles an hour with other rocks flying at it, man. We don't need, you know, we're not going to ensure shit. Ensure that no one is hurting each other. Ensure that people aren't stealing from each other. Other than that, man, get after it. Take care of your neighbors. And the number one thing, if you have kids, man, that's got to be your number one priority. Get off, like,
get off the phone.
Get off the phone. Get off this, like, career path pursuit that you're on. You made human beings. They're going to be in your house for 18 years, 20 years. That's your fucking priority now. You can get back to whatever bullshit you're concerned about when they're out of the house. It's frustrating, man. The only way that we will make...
Well said, man. Well said. You know, my dad was adopted. I shared with you a little bit.
Amazing story.
He's adopted, and you know, he's experienced a lot of abuse growing up, and you know, raised by foster homes and everything else. But he's like, man, there should be rules against parents.
You ever have a license?
You should have a license, yeah. You should have to be a parent. Like, not everybody should be a parent.
Yeah, no, not everyone should be a parent, man.
When he said it, it's like you feel it because it's like the abuse and the, you know, not sexual or anything, but like still just like abuse. It's like, you know, stayed with him for the rest of his life. You know,
yeah, man.
It's a blueprint. You know,
and not
when the guy's like this genius, like just beast guy, but that abuse affected him, you know, to the end. You know, to the end.
You don't have to be an abused, you know, child or come from some sort of horrific situation to make the decision not to become a parent. Your priority might be your career.
Right. Yeah. Neglect,
in which case,
neglect, yeah. Same thing.
Focus on that. We don't have a shortage of humans out here. We're good. We got the humans. They're going to keep coming. We got plenty of them. I get it, right? If there's one goal that we're supposed to accomplish here on Earth as biological organism is reproduction.
Right.
But that ship has sailed, man. We got it. Like, reproduction is ensured as human beings. We're good.
Yeah. We're going to survive.
If you are not willing to reprioritize your life and put your child as the number one priority of your existence, wrap it up. Take birth control.
Well said, man. Damn. This is from a guy.
Yeah. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. And I work in this world.
What's that? KIP. That's it.
Oh,
KIP.
I was gonna say KIP. I know KIP.
How do you say? What's the acronyms stand for? Right. What does KIPP stand for?
Knowledge is Power Program.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
KIP. Yeah, I know KIP. KIP's my world. KIP's
yeah,
the
that's
world
it. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Okay. I was gonna say KIP initially.
Thank you, Kevin or Jamie.
I should have said that shit 20 minutes. What's that? KIP schools are all over the nation.
Yeah, all over the nation now, right? But it started. They have them here in LA.
Oh yeah, they definitely have them here in LA.
And there's like a waiting list.
You know X Xavier?
Xavier, yeah.
His sister. I used to teach with his sister in Phoenix.
No way.
I didn't realize that until the UFC 300 party.
No way.
X used.
Yeah, we didn't have that. That party didn't. It just didn't happen.
I rolled with him a bunch. I was like, holy shit, like this, he was the guy in my head. I was like, this is the motherfucker right here. Like, this is my target for jiu-jitsu. This is my major barometer. This is the guy, whenever I get a chance to roll with him, this is going to be my best barometer of where my skills are at.
Yeah.
And that was all he was to me. He's a very nice guy. I enjoyed his company, but he's quiet. You know, I wasn't like chopping it up with him or anything. Then at the UFC 300 party, he's sitting there on the couch. Quiet, of course, with his brother. I was recording a podcast with Khalil, actually. And I went to go over the other room with Khalil, and his brother chases me down and knocks me on the shoulder. And as soon as I turned around, I recognized him. And he goes, "Are you Mr. Youngblood?" I was like, holy shit, Dominic. X's sister and I taught at Phoenix together, and this is in the crazy school that I was just talking about, the prison school.
No way.
Yeah, not just that. We were like best friends. We shared classrooms together. We both taught. She was a student teacher my first year, and then we ended up sharing like students the next 2 years.
No way.
That was the good part about our school. It's small. There's a lot of flexibility. I love that environment. So like we could just set up our own system. I had all the fourth graders technically, or maybe she had all the fourth graders, not all the fifth graders that had gotten kicked out of the school system. And we just collaborated like, all right, let's come up with our own system here. Let's do what's best for these kids' educational environment. We're not just like getting to, and so her and I collaborated. She's one of my favorite people on the planet. She lives here now in LA, and she used to teach at KIP in LA. She taught at KIP in Compton. And yeah, now she teaches in Van Nuys or is like a administrator at school in Van Nuys. She's an incredible person. But yeah, at the 300 party, I turned around, he's like, are you Mr. Owen? I'm like, holy fuck, Dominic. They used to come around, X and Dominic, Dominic is his brother, they used to come around.
They're little.
To my school when they were little, dude. Little, like kids. And then I'm sitting there at the UC 300 party, and he's like, yeah, X is my brother. And then my mind fucking exploded because X is this animal who I've literally been afraid of for the past year or however long I've known him, terrified of this guy. And I go and look at him, and literally it's the first thing I said to him. I was just immediately like, oh my God, I'm not afraid of you anymore. You're like the 10-year-old kid that I used to know back in the day. And Phoenix is incredible.
Wow, what a small world, huh?
Man. Unbelievable, yeah. Yeah, and she's, her sister's like just an awesome human, man. Like a genuinely, you talking about like how do you fix the education system or whatever? You got to get more people like X's sister, and you got to pay them 250 G's a year.
Yeah,
yeah, she's
worth
great.
Every penny and more, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Really is. But yeah, Kip is everywhere. Kip is like the gold standard for like inner city schools for like that. There's a lot of really well,
because there's no messing around. If you like, it's just your how you behave, how you do every single step.
It's hardcore.
Yeah,
they're hardcore. They're a charter school. They're a charter network nationally, and their approach is a hardcore approach. I like their approach to education, honestly. A lot of people, there's an argument to not do it like that. It's more of like, it's not like militant, right? They're not like doing wall sits or anything, but like they don't play around. But they only take hard needs. It's a lottery system. If you're an inner city, parent whose neighborhood school is shitty, like that's an awesome option. But they're hardcore and they'll play around and they'll kick you out. They'll work with you, but they're trying to. Those people are committed. Like they're trying to change the world. There's plenty of arguments against what they're doing, but they're super well intentioned. And I certainly would take a KIPP school if it was in my neighborhood over the local school, especially here in LA, any major city. Yeah. My biggest criticism of KIPP, not to keep going on that, but they're entire. Okay, that was going to be my criticism.
80%
that was literally
of the students go to college.
80% of their students go to college for the demographic that they're working with is incredible to have that kind of result. That was actually going to be my only criticism of KIPP, or like my only criticism of KIPP, is that they hammered that shit from day one as like the path out is going to college, which it is a path out, but it's not the only path out. And I think also with the education system and our world more generally, we need to start moving away from this university system as like the only means to success.
Outdated, right? It's outdated.
Super outdated.
So outdated.
It's very antiquated.
Plus,
it's incredibly overpriced. Like, I don't know, man. If you're instilling in a 5-year-old's brain from kindergarten through 12th grade that the only way out is college, they might take on $300,000 in debt to go to that private school, and that's just not worth it, man. It's just not. So hopefully, I'm sure they're getting into that shit in their education, higher years education stuff. KIPP knows what they're doing, but they are like
evolving with the times as well, right?
Yeah, yeah. College isn't the only thing, man. I was telling my kids that back in 2015. Like I just graduated college, and I just got out of it. Like, oh shit, I didn't need that. I definitely didn't need that to be here teaching y'all how to do subtraction.
Right.
I just, so college is not the only option. It's an option, but it's definitely not the only option.
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah, like my daughter's been wrestling, right? And so I was like, oh, she can get a scholarship. And I was like, well, if she wants to do that, if she wants to study something and whatever, and go to college, cool. But it's like, so what?
Yeah.
So what?
Yeah, man. I mean, what happens to a lot of kids, like what happened to me, I don't know. It has its benefits, right?
Because some people can go to college, they can sit down, but some people they shouldn't. They're much better doing something else.
Yeah, 100%. I would encourage my kids to travel, honestly, or work.
Try different things, right, and see what clicks with you, right?
I think it's just nice after spending literally your entire life in a classroom.
Yeah,
to take a break.
Yeah,
see, like let your mind kind of expand on its own rather than being constrained within the boxes of what you've been told for, like, compulsory education is kind of crazy, man, right? Like, I think about it now, the little girl I'm taking care of, she's 5, she's about to start kindergarten. and we're about to send her off to, thankfully we got her into, their parents wanted to send her to private school. I did not want to go to a private school, but they got her into a nice public school in Glendale called Mark Keppel.
My kids went there. Shout out to Keppel.
Oh, for real?
School.
They went to that school?
Yep.
Hell yeah. Okay, that's an even better endorsement. They have
a great school. Great school.
Beautiful. Yes, her parents really want to get
My mom was a teacher. She did her homework. We, did our part.
Oh, hell yeah. Her parents
it's a great school. Great school.
Her parents would be so happy to know that. I'm going to tell them that
school.
first.
Great neighborhood.
Yeah, yeah. But she starts in August, and it's like we're like, dude, I go over there in the morning. Sometimes everybody's asleep. Parents, both girls. And I used to wake them up. We got to get to school, got to get to school. I don't know, man. Nothing is more valuable in this life for your physical, mental, spiritual being than sleep.
Yeah. Oh, you saying getting them up early?
Man,
just having to get up just to go to school at early in the morning.
Dude, I'm gonna have to start setting an alarm, which is like my number one life goal is to live without an alarm. It's like my number one life goal because I'm so invested. And normally under any,
that's real.
Honestly,
yeah, you're amazing, man.
That's my number one. I set that goal when I started doing the podcast in 2018. When I was like I quit my job. I started traveling the country to interview family and friends, and I ended up finishing that whole era of my life on my last Latin America trip. I ended up in Bolivia, Lago Titicaca was where I ended up, and but it was during that year, basically of like reset, where I was establishing goals for life. Right. The number one goal of my life was not to have an alarm. It wasn't like get a PhD. It wasn't.
But I talk about it's not natural, right? It's against our
so
circadian
unnatural.
rhythm to let the kids sleep. I hear you, man. I feel that. I remember taking them to, what's that?
What is words are powerful, yeah?
Yeah.
Even that alone.
It's crazy.
Kevin's saying, yeah, the alarm. Just
Alarm.
the words are powerful. Just the word itself, alarm. Yeah.
And we don't even think about that, most of
Yeah.
us, right? In fact, I think typically it's considered a good thing. You set your alarm, you get up early, you get to work. Dude, you're functioning at like 50% of the capacity you could be. Not to mention you're being a dick to everyone you're interacting with because it's just sleep, dude. We should all be sleeping. That should be what should be the number one thing that the school system ensures for every kindergarten entering the school system is that they're all getting a full night's sleep. That should be for every fucking kindergarten class. The first thing they should be checking on is, are your kids sleeping? Don't bring them here unless they got a full night's sleep. It's crazy. But that's not what the school system is designed for. The school system is designed to get little factory workers.
Right. I was going to ask your opinion on, all this. Designed to make little factory workers.
Yeah.
And have employees and whatever else.
Yeah, so the modern school system was designed in the Industrial Revolution to create little workers to show up to the factory and make their widgets. Mm-hmm. Once again, not to go on my libertarian rant, but the problem is when government holds a monopoly on any sector, there's no innovation. Mm-hmm. So if listen, I part of me wants to honestly say, and I've said this on my own podcast, like, dude, maybe we should get rid of public education altogether and allow for innovation, maybe a voucher system, perhaps. If you're going to spend taxpayer money, yeah, okay, educating kids seems like it should be pretty high on the priority list. But anytime government has a monopoly on any sector, there's no innovation, dude. It's all stagnation. It just stagnates.
It's just like these not to get all political, but there's just so much, not political, but lobbyists like getting their agenda into like the school system, corrupting the school system on top of all the stuff we're even talking about, a whole other thing.
That's a whole nother question.
Right? It's crazy. Like, why are we like, with these like great schools, great people, like there's a ton of Armenians in, Glendale, and they're conservative, they have family values. I'm saying conservative, but they have strong family values. You don't mess around with their kids, you do not mess around with their kids. And yeah, they made the news, right? National news on some of this stuff that they're trying to get into the schools.
Well, that's what I'm going back to and talking about special education and centralization of power is that the California public education system California's a massive fucking state, dude. Right. It's being ministered in Sacramento by a bunch of liberals. Not, being liberal is great in some ways. I used to be super hardcore liberal socialist guy.
Me too. Like
when I woke the fuck
family,
up.
Yeah.
But I consider myself much more libertarian now, for lack of a better term. It's like you cannot administer school system little kids what's good for them from 1,000 miles away by a bunch of bureaucrats in an office. And then it gets even worse when you're talking about special education, which is administered by the federal government in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, innovation for sure.
Yeah.
Anyways, we can talk about it all we want, but what's the solution, right? And I guess KIPP is one of the solutions, having these specialized schools, creating your own like homeschool kind of situations, right?
Yeah, I think from a
I
practical...
think for me, I think of legacy and like having these kinds of places in the communities, right?
You have Sam and Alex, the kids.
Right.
I've talked to their mom a little bit about their whole homeschool situation. Dude, come on. That's awesome. These kids they've incorporated coming into legacy as part of like their K through 12 education. That's incredible. But you need parents that are on top of their shit, parents that have flexibility and free time and who are prioritizing their kids' development rather than their own personal pursuits or whatever. A lot of people are just popping out babies, even educated people of means or whatever, because it's a checklist thing that you're supposed to do to be an adult, right? You go to school, you graduate college, you get your college degree, you get a master's, get a nice job, meet a nice girl or guy, you have a baby, buy a house. You're just kind of doing all of these things without thinking about it. Next thing you know, you've got a human being that's dependent on you and is looking at you for everything, and your focus is definitely elsewhere. As far as a practical initiative, policy perspective to revamp the education system, this could go 1,000 different ways, or it could go sideways, and it will. But I think a voucher system is the best idea, where let's say we're spending $30,000 per student currently. Okay, instead of sending all of that money to the education system, a system where there's administrators and bureaucrats and waste, let's just give every parent with a child $30,000 check that can only be spent in schools. Okay, it's not give them a check, a voucher, right? They can only be spent in schools. If we're spending $30,000 a head anyway, we're getting shitty results.
To have them use it on a school.
Yeah, and then
I think they kind of do that with the charter schools and stuff, right?
Right.
They give like the parents money to spend on different things, right?
Yeah. So if instead we just had a world full of private schools where you're opening up a private school, I would love to open up a school. If the money was right, if the economics were right, and they would be if the government didn't have a monopoly on it, right? Because everyone just go to the free one. Why would they come to me?
Right.
But if it was just a world of private schools and everyone was paying, could then compete for the voucher, I think you'd see a lot more innovation.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's not... The problem with a lot of liberal policies and government action is it's very well-intentioned. It's super well-intentioned. You're trying to solve a problem. I get where you're coming from. It's very well-intentioned. But there are tons of negative externalities to stealing people's money in the form of taxation and then using that money to try to engineer society based on the changing political and cultural whims that are ultimately verified by bureaucrats.
Yeah.
And sometimes unelected officials. It's just not the best way to go about it.
Yeah. All right, let's go back to you.
Okay. That is me. These days, all I think about.
We were in Honduras. No, that's where we kept going on all these tangents when we tried to do podcasts with each other.
Yeah.
And we started talking about all these different things, you know, because we're passionate about helping people and help, doing the right things for humanity, right? But going back to you, and so you were in Honduras, and then after you were in Honduras for a year, where did you go after that?
After Honduras for a year, I did my first vagabond trip, right? No, Honduras for a year, then I worked in Costa Rica for 6 months.
Okay.
And I started just running. In Honduras, I was working with kids. I was working an after-school program for high school and college kids.
Okay.
And actually, the organization I was working for pulled out of Honduras because there's too much violence in the area.
Yeah.
But I was in the middle of all these projects. I was having a great time with my sister and my best friend at the time. I was dating somebody. So they pulled out early on into the year, and I just told them, fuck it, I'm staying down here. I'm going to finish up what I'm going to do. They wanted me to go back to D.C. and, work in an office or something. And so I just stayed down there and lived off what little savings I had and finished up my little projects at my own pace. But just wanted
no alarm.
No, exactly. Because I was waking up at 7 a.m. to go teach, computer literacy classes up at the local high school. Dude, it was brutal. So, yeah, that's exactly what I started using no alarm. I wasn't that conscious of it at the time. But anyway... from there, actually, with the added free time, I'm segueing into what came next. I started, actually started my first podcast in 2013 called the Honduras Podcast. And me and my roommate at the time.
Is it still out there?
It's probably still out there. There's only like 4 episodes or something, but it's probably still up. And we were just, there's a presidential election going on at the time. As you know, Honduras is crazy. There basically is no government. It's basically a narco state, right? And so there's a lot of interesting shit to talk about. So we just talk about what we were learning about Honduras, mainly political shit. And I started having a bit of a political awakening and started doing a lot more reading. At the time, there was an initiative to build these free cities in Honduras.
Free cities.
Yeah. So it's like there were going to be these zones, these like autonomous zones within Honduras that were going to operate by their own laws. That was like private everything. It was like a libertarian experiment. And my sister went to Tegucigalpa one day for work. We lived in San Pedro Sula, which is the most violent city in the world at the time. And I took a bus with her down to Tegus. And I was getting super obsessed with these free cities ideas. And so one day when she was out at work, I just took off my shirt and ran from where we were staying in our Airbnb to the presidential palace. And I knew the Secretary of State on Honduras was the dude that was like quarterbacking this free cities concept. So I literally just like knocked on the security gate of the presidential palace and asked if I could have a meeting with him. And when you're traveling in Latin America, the more dangerous and poor places you go to, white privilege is a legit fucking thing. If you're a white guy in Latin America and you operate
Blonde
with
hair,
enough
white
confidence, you can pretty much do whatever you want. It's within 30 minutes I was in the presidential palace with the Secretary of State having a meeting about these free cities. And
No way.
yeah, dude, it was crazy. Wow. And I wrote, so I was like, then I started just getting obsessed with, I guess, kind of libertarian thinking in general. I didn't know what it was at the time, but I was thinking I was going to apply for a Fulbright scholarship to go around to different countries in the world, like Singapore, Hong Kong, all these places that have had like radical economic transformations over in the 20th century in like incredibly short periods of time. South Korea. Yeah. It's due to capitalism, right? And it's more complicated than that. Like in Singapore, you fucking probably cut your head off if you smoke weed, right? So it's not all good, but you know, the market can solve a lot of problems. So I started getting obsessed with that concept. And so I started blogging just for fun, I guess, probably talking shit about Honduran politics. And that blog got picked up by a news website, and I got offered a job to write about like Latin American politics and shit and translate articles from English to Spanish. My Spanish was fluent by that point. And so I took a job in Costa Rica just for the summer to do like study abroad programs. And then after that, I started working for this website. It's the only job I've ever had. This is like 2014 going into 2015. It's the only job I've ever had was a computer job. Like where you're sitting down all day looking at a computer. The fucking worst. I couldn't do it. Yeah. It was super interesting. Yeah. It was right up my alley, like interest, but it was sedentary. It was super sedentary. So I quit. I think I got fired. Might be the only job I got fired from. The dude was just like, dude, you are the least efficient worker ever. Because I can't sit there, dude. After 15 minutes, I got to go up and do yoga or something. And so I was just super efficient.
That's the truth. You know what's good for you.
You should have seen Alberto after our first podcast episode. He was like, dude, stay still and talk into the mic. That's why I'm literally holding the mic right now because I'll be all over the place. So I started writing for this website. Then I met I was living in Costa. Should I say this? I was living in Costa Rica at the time. I was dating.
Careful.
I know. No, I've talked about this. I don't know if I haven't. Here we go. I was living in Costa Rica at the time. I was dating a girl, kind of living with her after the study abroad thing wrapped up, working for this website, and we had a conference out in Guatemala. And I was in Costa Rica, and I just took a bus up through Nicaragua into Guatemala at this conference. And
from Nicaragua to Guatemala, you said?
From Costa Rica through Nicaragua.
Gotcha.
Guatemala. And went to this conference, and then I met another girl. And she was hardcore libertarian. She was like in it. She was like mining Bitcoin in like 2008. Like she was all about that life.
She saved some, right?
Yeah, she did. She did. Yeah.
But anyway, once again, long story short, her and I ended up dating for the next 8 years, maybe. Wow. And so that kind of
took me off my totally vagabond trajectory in life a little bit. Certainly not enough for her sake, which was the ultimate downfall of a relationship. But from there, I kept working for the website till the end of the year. Her and I were kind of dating, but she's from Argentina. So we were doing like long distance kind of from Argentina. And I packed a bag. I got fired from the website. I quit. It just wasn't working. I hated it. And I had some money. And by money, I mean like $5,000, $10,000 maybe. And I was like, okay, now's the time. I don't know what I want to do next. I need a break from teaching. I don't want to be back into like a system. I want to be more autonomous in my professional life. But right now I really just want to travel. So that was my first trip in 2015. I packed a bag. I flew out to Phoenix to visit my old students from back in Phoenix, then took a bus to San Diego because that was going to be my first stop. I had never been to San Diego. I always want to check it out. Went to San Diego. And just from there, headed south for the next 6 months until I ended up in Montanita, Ecuador at a yoga training.
Okay.
It's like my sister was working for the United Nations in Quito at the time, so I stayed for her for a little bit, and then went to Montanita, which is like this surf town on the coast of Ecuador, and I was going to do yoga teacher training, and that was kind of my thing. I was like, I think I figured it out. I'm just going to be a yoga teacher. And then I was going to do the yoga training, and then I was going to go down. I was just going to keep going all the way to Argentina to see the girl. And I was at this yoga training. And every night I was getting obliterated by mosquitoes. I had no mosquito net. And within like 48 hours, I couldn't move. All my joints were just like locked. And I broke out in a rash from head to toe. Oh, and what I failed to mention is on the way from Quito to Montanita, I took a bus. And I woke up in the middle of the night with everything stolen. Everything. I don't have many possessions to begin with, but I was carrying a backpack with my clothes, my laptop, my money. And when I woke up, I had the shirt on my back, my shorts and shoes, and thank God I had my passport in my pocket.
I was going to ask about that.
That's a huge pain in the ass. So I usually keep my passport in my backpack. I don't even know why I had it there. But literally, that was it. Woke up, middle of the Ecuadorian jungle, 4 a.m. in the morning, a bus with me and a Canadian couple in the back, and I've got nothing. I don't know where I am. I have to change buses, but I don't have any money.
What'd you do?
I asked a Canadian couple for some money. They gave me like $10. I had to decide, okay, am I going to go back to my sister's place in Quito, or do I just continue with the journey? We went, showed up at the yoga teacher.
I like it.
Showed up at the teacher place, explained the situation to the owner of the yoga place. She's cool about it. Just come on in, start doing the training. We'll figure it out. I was like, hey, my sister lives in Quito. She'll come down here on the weekend, bring me some money. And then I realized I can Western Union myself money. So I Western Union myself money, so that got me going. But within 3 days of the yoga teacher training, I contracted an incurable mosquito-borne virus called Zika.
Oh.
No, what's Zika? Chikungunya.
Chikungunya.
Zika was the baby shrunken head thing.
Okay.
Chikungunya. Yeah. It like locks up all your joints. You're like, just feels like I have a horrible flu for like 2 weeks. And so I couldn't do yoga teacher training anymore. And I had no possessions. So I decided it's probably time to go home. And I don't know why.
Go home to U.S.?
Go home to U.S. and I decided I was just going to do yoga teacher training there. And I was going to be a yoga teacher and a CrossFit coach. I figured it out. That's what I was going to do. And I was doing a lot of CrossFit in Phoenix. And I don't know why I did this, but I didn't fly out of Quito. I flew out of Bogota, which is like 50 hours away on a bus. And so I had to take a bus for like 2 straight days with chikungunya. Like debilitating, you can't move, profusely sweating. It's all like these like Venezuelan grandmas on the bus with me. And by the time we get to Colombia, they know what's up because chikungunya was like going around. Everywhere you go, they have warnings about it. They would go through the streets and like fumigate the like municipal government and all this shit. It was a bad deal. And so like, it was like COVID at the time, right? So I was like this pariah on the bus.
We all swollen?
Like inflamed. You get a rash from head to toe. I have a picture of that on Facebook from like way back in the day. So they all knew.
Chikungunya?
Chikungunya.
Damn.
It's like dengue fever.
Yeah, I have dengue fever, yeah.
Yeah, I got dengue fever in Honduras too. It's worse than dengue fever because the joint locks up. Anyway, by the time I got to the thing, they had called like the local health department.
Yeah.
Like the Bogota health department. and these like government doctors get on the bus in Bogota, and like, you know, here's the gringo with chikungunya, and like, you need to come with us. And they brought me to this like clinic in the back of the bus station. It's like fucking very sterile bus station clinic, and like, you have chikungunya. This is this is a big deal. It's been going around. You need to come with us to the hospital and do like a little quarantine. I was like, yeah, totally. I was gonna pee real quick, and I just ran. I just ran out of the bus station, hopped in a taxi cab, went to a hotel, bought a plane ticket, flew out the next morning.
But if you have the chikungunya,
It's not contagious.
Yeah.
It's not contagious.
They just don't want you to fly.
I don't know what they want.
No,
I don't want to poke and prod me. I don't know what they want.
Yeah.
I don't know what they want. I'm not going to find out.
Yeah.
I knew it wasn't contagious. I knew it was on the bus. No one on the
Yeah.
bus. They all knew about it. They were with me on the bus for 2 days.
Yeah.
No one was concerned when I was on the bus. Everything I've been told was, you're not contagious. You know, you have to have a mosquito with the virus to bite you.
Damn,
right?
that's a crazy story.
But I was not going to get, that week of my life, getting everything robbed, getting the disease, and then like, I thought I was going to get locked in some Colombian hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a wild little ride. But yeah, then from there, I went back home, and actually ended up taking moving back to Phoenix and taking another teaching job. I think in large part because I was avoiding like getting caught up in this relationship. I wasn't raised by like a mom and a dad. I never had like a
Role models.
no. Not that I didn't have a role model.
Not
My
role
mom was
models for that.
I think maybe you and I discussed this.
Yeah.
Like marriage, this concept of like romantic life partnership never occurred to me. It genuinely, it was like how I didn't read a book until college. Like romantic planning or like life planning, family planning didn't even go in my head until college. Obviously I was attracted to girls. I had girlfriends here and there. And like I remember having the desire to like, oh, I want a girlfriend, or like wanting a girlfriend, like a partner. I remember that in high school because the cool kids had girlfriends and the older kids had girlfriends. So it was like this aspirational thing. But then when I got to college and started having girlfriends, and I love having a partner, but never once did the idea of life partnership occur to me. And I think that's one, because I was never modeled in my upbringing.
Yeah.
And I think two, I think deep down, I'm like really disappointed in myself in a lot of ways because of the mental illness during those years of my life. And it's continued throughout life. You know, we can get into it if you want. I know we're going along here. But I just couldn't imagine why anyone would ever want to spend their whole life with me. I don't even want to spend today with me. Sometimes I like myself. Sometimes I hate myself. Sometimes those feelings come back to back within 30 seconds of each other. Why would anyone want to be with this guy forever? Not to mention, like, I don't know the fuck I'm going to. 10 years ago, I probably would have voted for Bernie. No, 10 years ago, I did vote for Jill Stein and the Green Party. Now I think we should burn the whole fucking system down, and like, you know, Ron Paul isn't nearly, you know, libertarian enough for us. So it's like people change, people evolve. I think my heart is pure and is the same, and that's something I'm learning about myself, that there are eternal aspects of being a human being. And my idea of life partnership has evolved since then, and I'm now coming to understand it as a 36-year-old man. But just as my political philosophy has evolved, or any other, how I think about any other aspects of life has evolved. So, yeah, when I met that girl, I knew she was a special lady. I really did. But I think I just wanted to run away from it. And I did that for the next 8 years, off and on with this girl. Poor girl. I'm very sorry. I love you wherever you are out there. I'm sorry. I'm a little boy who's trying to figure out how to be a man. So yeah, I went back, taught special education. I thought I was going to maybe get into administration. I was working for a charter school, and I was working with kind of the owner of that network and thinking I was going to do that. Anyway, long story short, I moved to DC, lived with her. self-sabotaged the relationship. I was teaching like an international school in DC. Self-sabotaged the relationship again, disappeared again to Latin America, this time Panama, Peru, Colombia, Bolivia. And then I moved back to DC to try to like apologize and get the relationship back together with her.
Okay.
And officially stepped out of the education system and started just teaching yoga and personal training, coaching CrossFit full time. It took me like 5 years to finally just get out of the education system and kind of work independently on my own. Things were not working well with the relationship. I enjoyed working in the fitness industry, but you're like off 9 to 5 because everyone wants to work out before or after work. So you're like up at 4 a.m. to coach people. And
Doesn't work with the alarm.
no, it doesn't work for the alarm lifestyle. And a good friend of mine who I taught with in Phoenix a couple years prior to that had gotten married, and at his bachelor party in Austin in like 2017, I think it was my last year teaching, he like drunkenly, jokingly proposed the concept of me becoming his nanny when him and his wife got pregnant. And we were like, sure, let's do it. I always wanted to live in Southern California, and they lived in LA. And so like we jokingly, yeah, we'll do it. Then they got pregnant. And before they got pregnant, he kept texting me. Like all of a sudden, he kept pestering me about it. Like it's a real thing. And they got pregnant. And he started wanting some real answers. And I told him I didn't know. And I didn't know what was going on, anything. I need to get out of here. I need to disappear. That's when I disappeared down to South America. And that was the last vagabond trip I did in 2019. And it was at, kind of crazy, man. I was in Cusco. In Cusco, Peru. The night before, I was going to go to Machu Picchu. And he FaceTimed me with JoJo, who had just been born February 20th, 2019. And he showed me this newborn, half Korean, little chubby baby. And I knew what was next for me. And so I had to finish up the trip. I had to go try to get shit back together with the girl. You know, he knew all this. Like, dude, I'm coming back, but a couple of things I need to take care of first. And it didn't work out with the girl. You know, I wanted to go back to DC and get her to come out with me to LA and start her own family. She was not down for that. But yeah, I came out here then, right before COVID. And it was me and JoJo. And she's about to start kindergarten at Mark Keppel.
What?
She's about to start kindergarten at Mark Keppel, which is insane.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. It's been such... I feel like I've done some cool shit, had some cool experiences personally, had some positive impact on people's lives. Nothing outrageous. But the most fulfilling, magical, irreplaceable experience of my life has been raising those two girls. And I didn't have a dad when I was a kid, right? These kids have 3 parents. I would do some horrific things to prevent these girls from growing up with one parent. And so there's a part of me that heals every single day when I'm with these girls. It's like the fatherly influence that I didn't have growing up. I get to be there for them every single day when I don't wake up with my alarm. And that's like the coolest shit ever to me. It's magical. It's magical. I get to make humans while transforming myself. I feel so lucky. I didn't feel lucky during COVID. It was horrific. I just moved out here. I didn't know anyone. Her parents they were not legacy approach to COVID. They were very hardcore about COVID. And so there was no social interaction. Excuse me. It was tough, man. It was dark. Yeah, it was the medication I started taking in 2008 for treatment of OCD. I've tried to come off that medication multiple times in my adult life, 3 times. Hasn't been good. Before I started taking that medication, It was obsessive behaviors. I had to wash my hands repeatedly. Not to continue on this rant, I didn't think we're going to go here, but this all came from, it goes back to being a scared little boy.
Yeah.
I started having to engage in these compulsions in 5th grade. Because in 5th grade, you become a man around that time, and you start to become aware of your environment and the vulnerabilities of existence. And in 5th grade, I became aware that was me, 2 sisters, and a mom. There was no dad. There's no backup plan. There was no safety net. There's no welfare. My mom had a bad heart. She's always had a bad heart. My grandmother had cancer. She was the only other adult in the environment. It started dawning on me in 5th grade. Like, oh shit. Got a bit of a house of cards here. If something just goes a little wrong, like, we're fucked. And that started freaking me out. And so my brain started telling me the only way to prevent your mother's death and ensure the proper survival of you and your sisters is to wash your hands 100 times, right? Is to, walk up and down the stairs in the middle of the night X number of times. Every second, every day, there was something in my head for 10 years telling me you have to engage in this propulsion or your mom's going to die or something horrible is going to happen, right? It's a scared little kid who doesn't have control of the environment around him. Your brain is just grasping for some semblance of control, and it manifests itself in an anxiety disorder like obsessive compulsive disorder, where your brain does irrational shit as a means of trying to produce an outcome that it can't produce.
Yeah.
And so when I started taking the medication, all that went away. All that went away. I was never a depressed kid. I was always a happy kid, even with all this shit going on. But over the past 15 years, as I've tried to come off that medication 3 times, it's Prozac. It's like it's an antidepressant, SSRI, standard old school antidepressant. Serotonin reuptake inhibitor. It stops your brain from sucking serotonin out of the neural pathways. Like a blunt. It's like a hammer to the brain when, maybe a more delicate approach should be there. So it took away all the OCD symptoms. But every time I've tried to come off it, I'm like debilitated by, I guess, depression maybe. But not even depression. Really the biggest thing is I can't make decisions. It's decision making. Like when I wake up in the morning, I literally cannot decide what shirt to put on when I'm off the medication. So I've tried 3 times over the last 10 years. 15 years to come off this medication, and it hasn't worked. So I'm back on the medication now, and I tried for the last time to come off the medication in 2020, 2021 during COVID. No social interaction. Me and an infant all day, every day, and it got bad, man. It got very bad. There have been various times in my life where I've never attempted suicide, but I've contemplated it, and I've gotten in the planning phases of it. In 2021, I live in the guest house. They have like little rafters above, like little scaffolding for the ceiling. It's nice. I have TRX straps there to work out during COVID when nothing was open. And one day I remember climbing up on a chair and wrapping those TRX straps around my neck.
Damn, man.
Not thinking that I was going to hang myself.
Yeah.
But to kind of stab, and I've done this a couple times before. I remember one time, several years before, I'd taken out a razor blade and like just kind of drawn marks on my wrist. Not that I thought that I was going to do it. It's like kind of to establish a rock bottom. They're like, let's not go farther than this. Like, you're thinking about this a lot. Let's see what it looks like in physical manifestation. What does it feel like to climb up on a chair and wrap a noose around your neck? What does it feel like to get a razor blade out of the box cutter and actually make contact with your wrist? Is that like really a route that you want to go down? Is that how this experience, this incarnation of Alex Youngblood is going to end? It's not a good way to go out, man. And I remember when I did that with the TRX straps, got up on this chair and put the straps on my neck. And I swear to God, Jojo walked in the door right then. She was 2. And she could barely talk, and she asked me what I was doing. And I don't know. I think I've been kind of a different person since that. That was relatively recently, right? I think that was 2021. Yeah. I haven't thought about that kind of stuff really since that day, right? I think that day children truly became my priority. I think that day I truly realized that we're not independent, totally isolated operators in this existence. We are all intimately connected with one another. And all of your decisions, all of your actions affect others. And the more someone loves you, and the more someone cares about you, the more vested they are in you, the more your actions and decisions are going to affect them. So you may think that you're muting or numbing your own pain. But you may very well be causing an inordinate amount of pain for other people. And so it's a selfish way to go. It's a very selfish way to go. It's a cowardly way to go. There's nothing brave about it. What's brave is staying here, doing your best every day, and being nice to people.
Yeah.
And try to create an environment, be a type of people that reduces any of that notion that anyone perhaps would ever experience. Right? And I don't want anyone to experience sadness. I try to be friendly and smiley to all people because deep down in my heart, I'm really not. There's a place in me that doesn't want to be here. Mm-hmm. And I don't want anyone else to feel that. I want us all to encourage each other to stay here and do our best and have fun, and be nice to each other. So,
yeah, man. I mean, during the COVID, you weren't the only one, right? You weren't the only one.
I know. I know.
Come on, like social distancing, be by yourself. Like, come on, it's like
it was rough, man.
It was crazy. Thankfully, I had people around me always, and I wasn't in that kind of a situation. But man, like I know so many people, man, that
I know people.
I know people that that it happened.
100%.
And it's whatever, just blaming or whatever, but it's like it's just ridiculous what happened with the whole COVID and isolation and the drugs and everything else between, and made me really believe in what I do,
Me
here.
too, man.
And
it made me,
and that's something I'm willing to to be exaggerated or whatever, but like something I'm willing to die for because I know it's good for people. We weren't essential, we weren't an essential business, but we are essential. It's everything, it's everything. Listen, for me, man, it makes me happy. It makes me come on, my whole life isn't I know what this does for people.
Yeah.
So it's community, it's connection with others, and we need that. We need that, right? So yeah, man, it's appreciate you sharing that with the story. It's crazy, right? Just things can happen, right? But that was happening everywhere, especially in those times.
As far as legacy is concerned, you're concerned, this whole situation, if it caused me, the positive externality of it is it caused me to continue to solidify my priorities. Mm. And so when the opportunity came to invest a lot of time and energy into activities like jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai and martial arts, I've now reprioritized my entire life around that. The two little girls I take care of are number one. As soon as I drop those little girls off, I'm straight here. I don't give a shit about my career. I don't give a shit about my education or relationship status right now.
You're living the life, man. You're a rich man. You're a rich man.
I want to do what I'm passionate about as much as possible and then have a positive impact on the next generation. That's all I want. And at some point, I do want to have my own kids. And obviously you need money to do that. So I want to, I'm putting away money actually. And so there are financial aspects of existence and practical aspects of existence that certainly need to be addressed. But I think a reprioritization of what you truly value in life is first and foremost, and then the money will come after that. And the past, 2 years of my life have definitely I've never been more happy and stable, honestly, in my life than since I walked into the this place.
Well, I appreciate you, man. We all appreciate you. That's why I was like, we gotta do a podcast. But Kevin, shout out to Kevin for saying it first.
Thank you. Kevin was
Dropping
the
the
first
seed.
person I met at Legacy. He was my first coach at Legacy. I walked in, it was Kevin and Andrea at the front desk, and I just told them as soon as I walked in, just sign me up for the unlimited program. And they're like, you don't do the free trial class? I was like, no, I'm good. Just sign me up for the unlimited program. And they had the 7 a.m. MMA class, and that was the first class I went to. I just wanted to hop right into the fire. And Kevin was my first coach. And then after a couple months of that, I realized it was in way over my head, and I need to start going to jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai separately. And here we are.
It's amazing, man. You know, like it's one of my best friends, Amal Easton. One of his partner now, Elliot. He kind of started like just helping out with, you know, for trade for his tuition, whatever, and just cleaning the mats and helping teach and things like that. But he was just phenomenal at every aspect. And so I always find it interesting. You see people throughout the years. I've seen people throughout the years. This year, it'll be 25 years of legacy.
Wow.
At the end of this year. And you see people, how they do one thing is how they do everything. And so I see you helping, you know, with whatever really I see you with the deed, helping her and helping the school and just putting your heart into, you know, into whatever you're doing. And I really appreciate that. I really value that. And when you asked me to do a podcast, I'm like, yeah, let's do it, you know, because of just the person you are. And I really appreciate you, man. I really appreciate the things that you just how you show up, you know, to legacy and how you are as a person. I see that, you know, I see that. And so I appreciate that. Even just talking to you now, how you talk about your mom, talk about these, your you know, your kids that you take care of, and just your friend, just the people that you have in your life that you really care about. I appreciate that, man. I appreciate who you are as a person. I appreciate you being here, legacy, and all that you do for all of us.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you, this space that you've created. You've given me a life, and I'm just trying to be like you. I want to be like you when I grow up. Seriously, I really want to be like you when I grow up. And that's a strange thing to say for a 36-year-old man, but as I said, I identify as an 18-year-old, and I want to be like Alberto Crane when I grow up. So thank you.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.